Hi, I'm Samuel Prather, founder of Go Music and Reason user since 2013. Welcome to A Reason to Create. Hopefully today I'll give you a new insight on how to program or make a beat in Propellerhead Reason. So what I want to focus on today is something that a lot of non-musicians might never have even heard of. It's called locking. When you play in a live situation, the drummer and the bass player often try to lock up their patterns, meaning that they play either something that's the same or similar so that the patterns kind of work together. And it's something that's always kind of hard to figure out if you're not somebody who has a lot of years of experience in gigging and listening to a ton of records. I always recommend to anybody that's doing any kind of production that you listen to as much music as you can. I'm gonna go ahead and play a simple bass loop for you so that you can hear what it sounds like when a drummer and a bass player aren't locked. And then I'm gonna let you hear what it sounds like when I use the groove from the bass to actually lock with the drums. And I'm gonna open up a Reason drum kits and show you how that sounds. Okay, so need a bass. Alright, just a simple loop. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is just open up an instance of the new Reason drum kits rack extension, and I'm just going to play a simple kind of eighth note groove behind it. Okay, I'm going to set up the grid to eighth notes, and I'm just going to draw a whole bunch of them in there. The kick drum I'm going to put on 1 and 3. I'm going to put the snare on 2 and 4. And I'm just going to put a whole bunch of hi-hat. Whoops. And this is the basic pattern. I'm going to drop the velocity on these off beat things to help reinforce the groove. And I'm just going to copy this pattern. Yeah, it's pretty simple. It doesn't really need a lot, and it's really straight down the middle. Now, that's not what I would consider locked, though. It's not really based on the pattern that the bass is playing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bass information and I'm going to extract it into MIDI data so I can use that for my drum part. So what I'm going to do is bounce audio clips to MIDI. And now I get all of the rhythmic information and volume information. I'm going to go to the drum track and make an alternate take and drag that data down here. And just so we can keep things like apples to apples, I'm going to take the hi-hat pattern and move that to a new lane. I'm also going to do the same thing for my snare. In theory, alright, so we can hear right away that my bass playing wasn't super accurate, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's the imperfections that bring life to a performance. So I'm not going to fix the bass, but what I am going to do is I'm going to quantize everything in the drum lane because the drums are what I want to be solid. And I'm going to just quantize it by 90% to the nearest 16th note and see if that gets everything a little bit tighter. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that, considering that it only took us like, 10 seconds to do. But I can also go back behind and I can start removing some things, because I don't need every single beat that the bass player, me, played. I just need a couple of the key elements to really make it lock in and leave some space for the bass to be heard in some other spaces. So let's go in and clean it up in some places. I'm going to get rid of that one. Get rid of those. All right, let's hear what this sounds like. I don't like this. All right, so that sounds a lot more locked in to me. So the more generic drum pattern. And compare that to the one that we took from the bass. And this is not just something that's good for programming drums, this is something that's good for live drums as well. Anytime you hear a bass player play, it's a good idea to take that into account when you're playing your groove. And this is the same thing when you produce. So always keep in mind that you want that bass and that kick drum to be a marriage of sorts. There's some exceptions where people can just kind of separate those things, where they want both of those individual instruments to be heard really separately, really cleanly. But most of the time, I would say, especially in groove-oriented music, there's some kind of lock happening between the bass drum and the bass. And that might seem like a subtle difference, but trust me, in the production of your tracks, it'll make a huge difference. And even if you don't use it, just knowing that you can do that is going to help open up possibilities for you. I'm going to show you in another video how to use the groove from other instruments to enhance your drum programming even further. Hopefully you picked up something today that you can use in your own production. If you have better ways of doing some of the things that I showed you today, please leave it in the comments. If you have questions, also put that in the comments with any topics that you want me to touch on. I'm Samuel Prather. Hopefully I gave you a reason to create.